Well, hey everybody, welcome to yet another episode of Open World Chat. I'm here, I'm John Odom, here with Mark Card, my steadfast co-host. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, doing pretty well. Excited about today's episode. Should be
Yeah,
pretty
you
good.
feeling steadfast?
Steadfast. Let's see. Has anyone ever used that adjective about me? I don't think so, but I think I'll take it.
All right, sounds good. Got to take what you can get in this world, after all. Well, we're going to have a lot of fun today. We always have a lot of fun, but we're going to have extra fun today because we've got a guest. And I don't know, how long has it been since we've had a guest, Mark? Jeez.
Reinhard, sound editing.
Right, right. Okay, that wasn't too long ago. But yeah, our guest today is Mr. V. Rodriguez,
Hey,
filmmaker extraordinaire. V, how you doing?
I'm pretty good, man. How y'all doing today?
Yeah, we're doing great. We
Getting
can't wait to
by.
talk about your film.
Yep, I'm
Hey.
on my first glass of wine, so ask me again in a few minutes.
Hey, man, regardless, I'm happy to be here, man.
Yeah, well, we're happy to have you. And we are having you on here to talk about your film, Look at Us Now, a comic book movie, which I
Yep.
am psyched to talk about. Why don't we just get going? You tell us about the film.
So basically, I mean, it was always a passion project, as is, hopefully all the work that I do from here on out. But yeah, man, I'm a huge comic book geek. I've always been a huge comic book geek ever since I was a kid. The thing that got me into comic book culture in general was the very first Tim Burton Batman movie. That was my gateway, man. Like, that was the first movie I ever saw.
Mhm.
So, just that world getting lost in Gotham City and the just the character of Batman, Bruce Wayne, what he stands for, all that, it's just like just learn that there's more characters like that, and they all stem from that the comic book world, the comic book industry in general. I was just like, I instantly rabbit hole got lost. But yeah, man, this movie, it was it kind of came up in conversation one day when the Big Bang Theory was a thing that was like really popular, and I remember feeling like this is at like early Big Bang Theory. I just remember feeling like there's nobody on this show that feels relatable to me, at least. Like, it's a great show, it's fun, but there was never like a cool ish nerd or whatever. It was always like really stereotypical, but still fun. But in the back of my mind, I was always like, man, I wish there was some like you know some some color nerds on
Yeah.
this show. You know what I mean? Not to be like that, but it was
Well,
like a very
Oh,
minor nitpick.
be
You know what
like
I mean?
that.
you mean
Yeah.
besides
But
Kucherpali?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
All right.
exactly, exactly.
Little different flavor, and I'm going to talk to you about that in a little bit later.
Yeah, yeah.
So what other, if this isn't your first film, obviously you've been doing other stuff.
I've been doing like just smaller projects, but this is like my first major project. Yeah, it's like
Mhm.
everything else is kind of like a just like little stuff for fun, but this is like the first time that I wanted to do it, like take it seriously, do it professionally. So yeah, man, it's been a journey. It's been a wild ride.
Well, and you're getting some attention for this, sounds like, which is,
Uh, Yeah, shout out to the Vegas Movie Awards, man. They just awarded us best documentary short last night at the
no
Vegas Movie
kidding.
Awards. So,
Yeah, I was at I was last night, John. I did something great. I went to see the remaster of The Shining in IMAX,
That's
which
and
sounds incredible on its own.
sure does.
and right as we were in it, he sent me a text that said he just the picture of the announcement, and I was like, man, this is going to be great to talk to him about this tomorrow. So yeah, congratulations for both of us. Well, what a
Thank you, man.
great thing to have happen.
Thank
Mhm.
you. I appreciate that. It's surreal for sure. I was trying to not get too lit, so I could be on my game today and join y'all and not. you know.
Oh, there's lots of version of game. I mean, that's fine. Any of it would have worked. And are you
For sure,
floating
man.
this around any other uh what's it, who's festivals?
There's a few that have reached out that I'm not quite at the liberty to talk about just yet, but I have gotten some people reach out for guaranteed selection. But
Excellent.
yeah,
Excellent.
they haven't they haven't made any official announcements yet. So,
Sure.
I'm just holding out on that information for now. But 2026, man, it's gonna be a wild year.
Well,
Well, for your first one of these, this is just huge.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. But yeah, I'm thankful, bro. Like I never, pictured something like this ever happening in my life. So, and for it to happen off of something that started off as like a niche interest, as like as a child, and just meshing it with other elements, like poetry and film in general. So, it's crazy, man.
well, you're here really kind of at a nexus of culture here. This is not the earliest kind of iteration of geek culture becoming mainstream. I want to talk a little bit about culture here, and I want your opinion. So, you brought this up when you were talking about the Big Bang Theory, but it occurred to me that comic books are a distinctly urban creation, and not just an urban creation. They're a creation that was made out of cultures which are kind of not well, you, they are disadvantaged cultures. The modern comic book was invented by two Jewish guys, and Jewish guys in New York
Mhm.
are not necessarily mainstream, especially in the 30s. And basically, my question is: so you brought up that there are too many white folks here in this TV show, The Big Bang Theory. And so here's my question: what has been the different impact in communities of color of geek culture that maybe is not going to be the same as in traditional white mainstream culture? What's the difference in how it affects, you know, different segments of society? I think you're a pretty good spokesman for that.
I think, interestingly enough, man, I think that there isn't that much of a difference, and that's part of what makes comic book culture, geek culture, so relevant and so important, so influential. I think that, it doesn't matter what type of upbringing you had, what kind of cultural background you have. Like these are all very human stories, you know. And I mentioned the black and brown stuff earlier, just like as a super like nitpick, but mostly in a playful way, not so much like I'm tired of seeing these white guys on my TV. Like it's nothing like that, But I think that we all take the same thing away from certain characters. Maybe some characters, uh, you know, maybe some people relate to some characters more than others, but I think at the end of the day, if you take something from either one of them, we all get the same thing from it, whether it's truth and justice in the American way or with great power comes great responsibility, all that stuff, man. I think it's always been like embedded, like you said, in urban culture as well. Like even if you look at like old school hip hop, graffiti in general, like that's all very uh bright and comic booky within itself. So I think both cultures uh pulled from each other, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
No, I think that's a really good point. I mean, if you look at Keith Haring's work, it's all comic in nature anyway. I mean, you've got bright graphics, you've got exaggerated shapes, you
Hmm.
have uh, similar kinds of visual vocabulary. I think that's really interesting thing to point out. And it's interesting because, a lot of this stuff started out as street culture.
Yeah.
It
Oh
started
yeah.
out as, comic books were just kids who were bored and drew and were interested in mythology and interested in heroes and interested in finding some kind of way to deal with whatever they had to deal with. It just brings out a point to me that uh, this kind of stuff is criticized for not being real art or legitimate art. But I think what you just said demonstrates that comic books do what real art does, which is make the personal universal,
Hmm.
which is serves as a bridge between communities. And I just wanted to ask you that question in case you thought there might be some kind of distinct value it might have. But
No,
and I'm sure there
yeah.
is, but I kind of surprised you with the question. But I think it's great that instead you talk about the unifying element of that culture because we need some of that.
Yeah, for sure. And like, and it's a great question. It's an interesting question. I just, you know, the way I look at it, I think we're all just kind of we all live different lives, but we're all just having a human experience. Some people, you know, could have very similar factors in their lives, versus others. Like, so some people have very different lives than I do. But at the end of the day, like the whole point of even like this project, this film is like we're all just not that different at the end of the day. We're all just people trying to figure it out, trying to live our lives, processing information, the same exact way, taking different things away from the information that we retrieve.
I do think it's though it's standalone. It's unique how um so much superhero comic book culture has really found its way into hip hop culture in a
Oh yeah.
way that you just don't see in anywhere else. MF Doom and just all kinds of references and things all
Hmm.
constantly sprinkled through hip hop for decades now. And that's really cool. How does that happen?
Right. Like, it's kind of like the same thing. Like, even in wrestling culture, like, it's kind
Mhm.
of the same exact thing where, you know, think about some of the earlier costumes in wrestling, it's like these tights and like you got these bodybuilder dudes like and they essentially sculpt themselves after like superheroes. It's it's so interesting. And like even there's a bunch of hip hop wrestling crossover too. Like they all intertwined like
Sure.
so seamlessly. Um, But even like even with rappers that necessarily don't directly reference comic book culture, it still has that same energy of like this is a character that I'm creating for myself. I'm gonna greatly exaggerate, my lifestyle, my persona, how tough I am, whatever. Give myself a an alias,
Mm.
and just show everybody what my superpower, what it is I can do, why I'm better than blah blah blah. Like it's it all just kind of it's the same flavor to me. You know.
So before we get to talking about the movie, I just got to ask. This is probably a better last question. Why am I asking this now? I've started. I'm going to ask. What are you reading these days?
Ooh. These days I'm reading a lot of Boom comics.
Oh,
Honestly I have fallen off of reading comics just because like I don't know, man, like
they're
the
expensive.
not only that, there's so many reboots like that are happening so much quicker than they used to. Because like even in the 90s when we had uh like the whole reborn stuff, and then
Mhm.
after Secret Wars, they kind of just wanted to create a whole start the universe again, and it's like, all right, bro.
Yeah.
I'm very much like I stick to the trades now, man. I can't do single issues anymore, and a lot of the stuff that I'm actually rereading is stuff that I've read years ago. You know,
Mhm.
I love all the throwback stuff. I love going back to the Marvel Knights, Black Panther and Daredevil, but you
Oh,
know, those are the first two books that I you know went to the store with my own allowance money and was like, I want this. But
no, yeah. Well,
here's all right.
those, yeah,
Yeah.
those Priest Panthers, you don't get better than that.
Oh
Those,
nah. Fun fact. This is probably like a really silly story to tell. But when those books came out in 98, late 1998, I I'm a little kid, I'm in this store, I'm just like overwhelmed by everything. I'm like, I get to choose two things. Okay, cool. I gotta make this decision like really important. And Buffy the Vampire Slayer is one of my favorite shows of
Yes.
all time, right?
right on.
So the aside from just being intrigued by the covers of Black Panther and Daredevil #1 from the Marvel Knights run, the thing that sold me on both of them is the ad on the back was a Buffy the Vampire Slayer ad for Got Milk. And I was like, all right, well, yeah, clearly these are the two ones that I got to go with. So thank you, Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Well, that's
You know,
hilarious.
I
first.
want to talk a little bit more about the film. I really like how you bring in different perspectives. Did you know all those people? Did you meet them at cons? Because, I know you're from New York, and so
Mhm.
that's a big con, and it's easy to meet lots of people there. So talk to me a little bit about how you chose people for the film, and then kind of what the con experience fed you with.
Well, I mean, I'm sure as both of you know, like there's different types of fandoms and types of fans in general. And, I've met a lot of people who who are into this stuff just like I am. But some people also just have different things that they take away from comic books. I've never been the guy that's been interested in like who's gonna win in a fight. Like I don't care for any of that stuff. Like it's fun to talk about like theoretically. It's like, well, like when you try to use like fake logic, it's kind of fun. But that's just it's not what I personally take away from reading those books. And there's also people who kind of crap on other things that people like, and this is like, what, bro, that's subjective. I know that I have a bunch of unpopular opinions on certain runs or titles, whatever. And some people go like real hard. I think we call them toxic fans. So I try to try to not have like-minded people because man, I have no problem like getting into a debate with anybody, that's
Yeah,
also kind of part of what makes it interesting. It's
that's
like, all
part
right,
of
well,
it.
yeah, it's like, okay, so why do you feel that way? But
Mhm.
I'm also the type of person, I hear it out. Like I love when people have different opinions than I do. Like if we disagree, that's even better because it's like, oh, okay, I get to pick your brain a little bit now. But once you start getting disrespectful or whatever, I'm just like, okay, like you're taking this way too far, bro. Like I'm just trying to have a conversation, and you're taking it somewhere that it doesn't have to go. And the people in this film, shout out to Manny, shout out to Tony, Leo, Nadia, Christina, Phil. These people, they're into this stuff the same way that I am, and they also they're affected by the stories and these characters and the same ways that I am, and they they really take away, or yeah, still take away the notion of like this is inspiring. I want to be a better person because of this. Not just because of these books, but like that's just something that was emphasized.
Mhm.
Partially due to the stories, and it's like, yeah, that's cool. Like I met a lot of these people at comic shops. I met these people at conventions. I met some of these people from my own neighborhood. And like it just made us bond even more,
Mm.
like a lot quicker too. But yeah, I was I was real selective, I had a bunch of people that I was just like, you know what, this isn't like you're just kind of the energy you're bringing is just gonna really, go off rails here. And I just really it was important to me that I had people who understood the assignment, had their own fandoms and their own opinions on things, and you know were different enough from my own that it's not like, okay, this is just him repeating himself. It's like, no, I want you to talk about your experiences and how that worked for you, and do it in the purest way, for lack of a better term, in the purest way that you can.
Yeah.
And I think that it's something that was accomplished, and everybody brought it. Everybody, it was great to see and hear everybody tell their story.
Yeah, you did a really good job of capturing kind of the differences in experience between each one of the people in the movie. And so that I really appreciated that.
Hmm.
Um, it's
Thank you.
it's pretty clear that I'm seeing here is that one of the things that comics brings to everybody is a sense of certain values and the values that you're going to pick up and carry on really kind of through the rest of your interactions in society from here forward.
Mhm.
And so I just think that's pretty interesting. The other thing I think it was interesting and a kind of common thread that ran through everybody in your movie was in your film was that uh, it gave them a place to express their interest in ideas and their, for lack of a better word, their intellectual interests. A lot of people don't have a way to express that kind of appreciation for a deep level of knowledge, an understanding of a very long lore. And you kind of get that even though people are coming from different kinds of books and different kinds of values, that there's like this core structure that feeds the kind of impulse to learn things and develop a body of knowledge. And I just thought that was a great part of the way you did this.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And I, you know, one of the things that even in the film I touch upon is like a moral compass, right? Or whether it's a moral compass or the two examples that I gave that I give in the film, which are again, Black Panther and Daredevil, where it's like, King T'Challa, ruler of a nation, right? But still incredibly humble, incredibly disciplined, focused, I think that's something that more people should, want to aspire to be, like less arrogance, less, more, just humility in general. And, Matt Murdock, uh, Daredevil, like understanding the system that he's in, but still, when push comes to shove, he takes the matters into his own hands. It still does so in a way that is in that's still in the confines of the law, Like, yeah, he's a vigilante, but he's not killing anybody. Well, depending on who wrote the run, he's not killing anybody, but it's just I always find that interesting, man. Like these are even the even people who have everything in these books, they're still people, and you still see them
Mm.
have their their struggles, you know. Batman, going back to that, like he's a billionaire, but he was also an orphan, and like that clearly seeing his parents, murdered in front of him, that took a huge psychological toll on him.
Mhm.
And, to devote that from being a child to devote yourself, like I want to make sure this never happens to anybody again. So I'm gonna dress up like a bat, just
Right.
start, you know, just start, you know, taking justice into my own hands.
Right.
And and it's still interesting because again, like these are still things that are he's a vigilante, technically not technically not a legal thing to do. But again, he's not, depending on who wrote it, not killing anybody.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah. Well, yeah, and all that, it does if you dig into it, this isn't the old days. There's a lot of moral grayness in these comics that there didn't used to be. I mean, you go back to it all started, I feel like, with old Claremont Byrne X-Men, where you had the conflict between Cyclops and Wolverine, the X-Men do
mhm.
not kill. And then
Yep.
you move into Frank Miller. And
Yes.
next thing you know, you move ahead a few decades and you're into Civil War. And
Yeah.
then, so this stuff has been here long enough, and there's enough characters that come from different places, and there's enough, I think, from the people who grew up with this and grew up with this developing idea of what a vigilante is and what does that really mean. You
Hmm.
get into, yeah, you still get a pretty good sense of good and evil in the comics, but what that means and how that shakes out in real terms is really something you see played out in comics now in a way you don't really see anywhere else.
Yeah, and I love that because, like these are stories that I think are obviously like exaggerated versions of our world, but once writers start to like highlight those aspects, I think that's when the best work comes out. And yeah, I know like it sucks because sometimes I think certain writers might focus on uh, those aspects a bit too much, where it kind of derails the story when they make every character sound the same and have every character just, spouting the same thing.
Sure.
But in one of the examples you gave, Civil War, that was a big deal, when it came out almost 20 years ago, which is crazy.
I know,
But
right? That's so long ago.
wow. Yeah, I still own that run. I got, but yeah, man, like back more so even than the movie. Like I think when that was happening, especially like within geek culture, like you really felt like, are you Team Iron Man? Or are you Team Captain America?
Oh
You know,
yeah.
and
And what Tony Stark, the character was nominated for best villain in one of the annual comics awards. I can't remember
yeah.
which one. That
Man,
was
and that was insane, bro. Like just to even think of them like going, you know, going that route with him. And like there's people it's crazy how people still kind of like debate that. Like was he really a villain though? Like was he really wrong? Da da da. And it's like it's interesting that, a comic book, an entire comic book run can have that impact on people. And, whether it doesn't matter whose side you're on, like it still made that much of an impact into how people uh, correlate that with real life. So I think that's interesting. And it's something that, it's not that far off. It's crazy. Like even like today, like we're all just arguing about what, I feel like everybody in especially in this country, like maybe wants like the same thing, but different aspects of it, and we're just all talking about nothing. So yeah, man, it's stuff like that that really resonates with me the most in comic book culture.
Mhm.
Um, Even going back to like Frank Miller, like The Dark Knight Returns is still like one of the best stories ever told, and it's like in the alternate future. Not that well, I mean, if you think about it, because that's a book from the 80s. This is essentially he was saying like, yo, this is what the 2010s are gonna look
I know.
like, and it's wild, bro. Like, but it's always interested me, like just to see um how writers take certain characters, and it doesn't work for everybody, but when they take certain characters and they place them in these real world scenarios, these like political scenarios, it's very like it's never that black and white either.
Mhm.
That's the best part about it, in my opinion. Like that's the stuff that really makes you think and look at things like, oh damn, like what would I do? in this situation. If I was this character, if I was the main character of this book, or if I was, you know, just anybody living in this world of said book, like how would I react to this? Whose side would I be?
Yeah.
How would I view, you know, Batman or, how like what street do the mutants live on? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But
I want to contrast the two characters you said affected you the most,
mm,
Black Panther and Daredevil. And a couple of things occurred to me when you were talking about that. We were talking about a little bit about values,
mm,
and you'd have a hard time finding more diverse backgrounds between the two characters. T'Challa's born into royalty,
mm,
and not just human royalty, Wakandan royalty. Not that they're not humans, but it's a whole level of civilization already above whatever we have, at least technologically.
yeah. So it's a technological utopia,
And
essentially.
and and
Yeah.
he's got, but see, he understands his responsibilities to those who rely on him. And then you've got Matt Murdock, who grows up in Hell's Kitchen, which at the time of the origin of the character was not the neighborhood as is today.
Hmm.
Hell's Kitchen's been kind of gentrified and changed, and
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
lot less violent than it used to be. And but the origin of the character is in disadvantage. It's in starting at kind of the bottom rung of society, and he works his way up, and a lot of that has to do with what happened to him. But what's interesting to me is you've got these two different kinds of environments these characters grow up in, one of absolute privilege compared to other people around him, and one of kind of relative deprivation, right? Well, what's the thing that keeps them together? What's the thing that links them together is service to others.
That's right.
And service to others sometimes in a situation, especially with Daredevil, which is just almost entirely unjust. And that injustice comes not only from, bad human behavior, but also from just a bad system. And I think it's interesting that, you talk about a moral compass. One of the things I like about comic books is they can take people from very different circumstances and show a certain set of values, and how even though these people are from those different circumstances, um, they can find a common set of understanding, a
Right.
common kind of rules, a common set of rules for ethical behavior. Um,
Exactly.
and John makes a great point in saying that in lots of these comics, especially most recently, they show that sticking to this ethical standard, this idea about service to people in the community, and boy, yeah, I would be terribly remiss if I didn't mention Peter Parker in the same way.
Mhm.
Peter Parker didn't go national originally. You know what I mean? In terms of being a superhero, he was the local superhero.
Yep.
But
Yeah. The path of Spider-Man is a weird one.
yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
but the point is, they're all service oriented toward their own communities. And
Mhm.
so the question I have is, do you think that's why comics work for almost every segment of society? Is because you can find commonalities in the experiences of different characters. I do have to add though that almost everybody who becomes a superhero is just a trauma victim, a straight up trauma victim.
Yeah. And one of the points that I try to make in the film is that it doesn't matter what it is that you've been through. That doesn't necessarily give you a reason to, you know, do wrong to anybody. It makes it's I understand why people take certain paths, but it's more it's more commemorable to like, you know, take that pain and try to do something good with it. Because it's easier to do something, it's easier to take the wrong path. It's easier to give into your trauma, you know? We've all had those moments where it's, we've we something happens, something terrible happens, or something traumatic happens, or we try to find some type of outlet for it. And a lot of times, you know, the outlet isn't the that outlet per se isn't the best option. And it's a way it's just it's hopeful, man. I think that's something that a lot of people are missing, and it sucks because you know we see in the real world, the real life supervillains, getting away with a ton of things, and not enough people who have a clear moral compass to help them guide them through it. And I'm glad that you brought that up because that was also the point that I was trying to make earlier with your first question in regards to how these characters can affect different people. And the characters you know, that you just mentioned are incredibly different from each other. I mean, I guess Spider-Man and Daredevil would have more
They
in
have a lot in
common.
common. Yeah.
They have a ton in common, but even then, there's a whole bunch of other characters too that like still have they stand for that same type of they stand for the same path, and where it's like you know Tony Stark and Peter Parker are two completely different people,
Right.
but they still want to take their trauma and try to do something better with it. And I
Sure.
don't know. I just think that that's something that was like the whole. That's a big reason why I made the movie. That's a big reason why I love talking to people about this stuff because you get to see like who takes that stuff away from it or anything that anybody takes away from it. It's interesting to me. It's like I don't want to say it's a philosophical thing per se, and it is, but it's just interesting to see what people will take away from certain things, and it kind of gets you a glimpse in like who that person might be, for better or for worse. Not that that's how I would just judge anybody because we're a complicated species, right? We just
Yeah, that's a
it's
nice
just
way to put it.
yeah, exactly.
So,
But
what I saw myself in your movie, um, the film is totally different. It's not, um, I don't think it's where you had in mind necessarily, but when you've got a couple of these folks you're talking to,
mhm.
um, talk about getting into comics by like finding and reading their dad's comics.
Yep.
And I'm like, holy shit, I'm dad. That's me. Because I'm old, right? I'm ancient. So, I grew up reading, somewhat in the 70s, but mainly I was hooked in like in high school and early college days reading like, the Wolfman Perez Teen Titans and the Byrne
Oh man.
Fantastic Fours and the Simonson Thor stuff. And
Yep.
that's like the stuff that they were pulling out to read to get into it. And
Yep. Yep.
I find that incredibly cool. I mean, I guess it's like, I don't know, Gen Xers are way, we're way too, we're all over the place. We got our nose in too much shit. It's like all the 80s music and everything. But the 80s, the 80s comics or the early 90s comics were
hmm
informing some of these, this new fandom is really cool to me.
You yeah, yeah. You mentioned Perez, George Perez, RIP. Shout out to George Perez.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, legendary artist. And luckily he does make a small appearance in this movie, and I am thankful for that. Um
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's that man, that hit hard, bro.
That
His
was a
his
tough loss. That was a
his
tough.
Avengers run with Kurt Busiek in the 90s is just one of the damn that one that was a very that helped mold me a lot as well. That was a very the Ultron run and the Kurt Busiek Perez run was just something that blew my mind even as a kid, like talking about all these technological advances and how AI, like even and I'm taking all this in as a child, you know. So we want to talk about AI now. I'm just like, oh yeah, I've been through that. I could have told you about
Yeah.
that 20 years ago. What are you talking about? You're just figuring this out?
The 90s were a great time for comics, like Rob Liefeld feet notwithstanding, but
Oh my God.
no pun intended there. You can't, feet standing. See what I did there? I planned that.
Oh, dude. I love the feet commentary on Liefeld, man. He's a funny dude. He's a solid guy, man.
He
But
is. He is.
wow.
Who would have thought?
Yeah. Wow, wow, wow. That man, everybody tried to do that look and it just did not work.
No.
But it's crazy because homeboy went on to, create some of the biggest characters, probably the biggest one being Deadpool. But
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. He had a huge impact for
Something
sure.
about those feet, man. Well, Tarantino would be disappointed, bro. What are you doing?
That's funny. You mentioned that. I'm going to take us off in another direction for a couple of seconds. I think it was Seth Meyers had Maya Hawke, Uma Thurman's daughter,
Mm.
on to talk about something. And Seth Meyers asked, what was the advice your mom, Uma Thurman, gave to you about working with Quentin Tarantino? Because Maya Hawke was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And she said, well, this is what my mom said: wear shoes.
Wear
All
Doc
right, I
Martens.
want to link you back to somebody, one of the greats of comics, the man himself, Stan Lee. Something you
Yes.
said earlier made me think exactly of what Stan Lee what said in response to a question about this. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but somebody said, well, who would win, the Hulk versus, Wolverine? And he said, I can't answer that question. He said, that's not relevant. That's like asking which of your children you love the most. And so he
Yeah.
famously avoided that question, because that just wasn't his take on the comics.
No, not at
So,
all.
I mean, that's not what he was interested in. He was interested in stories. He was interested in telling individual stories. And the other thing that I thought of when we were talking about trauma is whether or not you take it and make something positive out of it, determines, well, are you going to be Spider-Man? You're going to be Kingpin.
Right.
Are you going to be Iron Man or are you going to be Thanos?
Right, right.
And I think that's a useful thing. I have a friend that passed away recently, and she was a therapist, and she was a therapist for first responders, people who saw other people go through terrible trauma. And the one thing that this friend of mine said was that these first responders absorb that trauma and live the same trauma just because they're so empathetic and sympathetic to begin with. And it's, I think, one of the things that comic books show, like you say, is that how you respond to terrible things in your life is, one, your choice, and two, really important in terms of what goes on forward. And I think it might help people in some way to kind of see an example which is so different from their lives, they can find some way to deal with that trauma. And I think that's really kind of an important social function. It's like people used to say that video games were worthless. And I used to be one of these guys who thought the same thing
Hmm.
until I saw somebody do a TED talk. And what they basically said was, this is kind of esoteric here. We're going to talk a little bit about uh, artificial intelligence. So one of the things they wanted to do with medicine was this. They were looking for certain proteins. So if you get the right configuration of proteins in the HIV virus, you can block the virus from spreading, right? And so what they did was they would look through they trained computers to try and find the best configuration for these proteins so they could stop the spread of the HIV virus. And computers failed. They did 3 years worth of it, just completely failed. So a gamer said, tell you what, I mean, a game designer said, why don't we try to design a game that humans can play to find the right configuration for these proteins? And for God's sake, here's what happened. They solved it in a matter of months compared to years. And the whole
Wow.
point of this was to talk about what is it about gamers that allowed them to solve a problem, which is essentially a permutation problem. How many different combinations of different shapes can you get to find the right answer? Well, computers are great at these games, but humans found them first. And one of the things they said was that gamers are incredibly persistent. They will get crushed time and time and time again by an enemy, over and over and over and over again, especially with big boss fights. Do they give up? No, they just keep going. They just keep going. They just keep going. So they're used to dealing with persistent problems that are very difficult to solve. And what makes them do that? What makes them get obsessed like this? It's the thrill of figuring out the problem. And I think comic books wire people, just like any other kind of literature, wire people to deal with that and process that kind of experience over and over and over again. And I
And
think,
gamers.
yeah, well, gamers, they do the same thing. And there's a lot of overlap between the two of them. But persistent problems like trauma, persistent problems like injustice, persistent problems like racism, they need lots of people trying to figure out how to deal with it. And I think that's one of the things comic books do. They provide accessibility, although, John, you make a good point here that they're less accessible because they're getting more expensive. But I think one of the great things about comic books is they uh, help train people in how to deal with difficult situations. They prepare you for things, and they do it in a way that helps you take you outside your own circumstances.
Right.
Like you understand what the difficulty Iron Man had with alcoholism, right? You understand, seeing a situation which is unjust over and over and over and over again, and how do you fix that? What do you do? How do you contribute to it? So I think you get some of that in your movie. It's indirect. You're not dealing with it directly, but I think that's one of the things you see in this film is how it's a way to socialize people positively.
Right. And that's at the end of the day, like the goal was to give, a perspective on comic book culture, but celebrate it at the same time, you know. Um, as much as I would as much as I would have loved to like explore all of the culture, whether, it's for better or for worse, the thing that was important to me at this point was I don't want to say accessibility because, it's not like if you're making something for everybody, you're making it for nobody, right? But I just
Right.
wanted to give like my perspective on it. And, it's one thing for me or for anybody to just say that they love something, but it's like I wanted to show my love for it.
Yeah.
Uh, in my way with, some other great people and their perspectives as well. But, I just things things like that are what are important to me in comic books. And, hopefully that's something that everybody who watches it takes away from it. It's like, okay, cool, this makes sense. I get why people are into comic books now. I understand that comic book culture isn't just like your stereotypical, you know, suspenders and glasses and
Right.
you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
Yeah,
right.
that irked me about that's the only thing that continues to bug me about Big Bang Theory is
Yeah,
they're playing into old stereotypes that don't exist anymore.
right.
You've got Ta-Nehisi Coates as a comic book writer.
Yep.
This
Who I love, by the way.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And
Agreed.
God damn it, when are they going to make his Superman?
I know. I got
That
to
well,
hear
no,
him
that's
speak
that.
at a New York
Look,
Comic Con.
I'm not a comic book guy, but I even read quite a bit of that because it's so good. It's so good.
But like there's a lot of people who would disagree with that. And you know what? It is incredibly subjective. But you
But they're
know,
still wrong.
given, mentioning, man, I admire Ta-Nehisi Coates so much, like just as a writer, and he doesn't get his flowers enough for his Black Panther run. I think it is absolutely phenomenal,
I agree.
specifically the Nation Under Our Feet run.
Mhm.
Whether however you feel about anything he's done after that, that's it's still all subjective, but.
It works a little slow for my taste, but the stories are great. And
Yeah,
I got
but
to hear, I was saying, I got to hear him speak when I was
mhm.
writing for Bleeding Cool. I got to hear him speak up at one of the New York Comic Cons, and just to hear, someone of his caliber, and that was peak Ta-Nehisi at the time.
Right.
It was like his book was, it was the thing, and to just hear him get up there and totally self-consciously just talk about comics, just talk
Yeah.
about, and not just Black Panther, but everything else. It was validating, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because that run in particular, I think one of the I don't want to say it wasn't an argument per se. It was more of a debate. Uh when that book had come out in 2016, one of the main things I heard about it was that it's too sophisticated.
Who's
I'm like,
sophisticated?
what
God,
do
that's
you?
hilarious.
It's too sophisticated. I remember I had this is back when I was working at a comic book shop, and so I heard it all, and I heard it all the time. And something that somebody had said to me was like, "Yeah, this it's too sophisticated." I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" Like, it's too wordy. I'm like.
Has he read Hickman? Holy crap.
And
Well,
I
or Watchmen.
like it's too wordy. I don't know. Like it seems like it's getting too it's too political and it's too this and it's too that. I'm like, well, I mean, you're talking about a character who's literally a politician. I mean, it's more of a monarchy, but he's a representative of a country. It's
Oh yeah, he's in. Well, I think most comic. Speaking as a former political scientist, I think most comic book characters are political.
right.
I think there is a very political nature to comic book characters.
Oh, there's definitely a I know what you mean. I don't know if I would say that they're all political in nature per se, but I do
No, no, they're
think,
not. So the characters aren't necessarily political, but the whole nature of their what they do and how they do it. And the best way to look at this is look at the MCU version of Civil War.
yep.
These people are superpowered. They can do incredible damage just on their own. And do they need regulation or not?
Hmm.
Just that framework makes them inherently political.
Right.
I'm not saying the characters that in the stories they play or the actions they commit are political, but the idea of superheroes and supervillains and the interaction between them and regular society is by definition political. This
True.
gets me back into these people that say, oh, yeah, well, I hate it because X-Men went woke. Huh? And the same things as Star Trek. Oh, Star Trek is too woke.
Right.
Do you know anything about these things? Because it's not sounding like you do. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean you have to emphasize the political nature of them, but I do think they are inherently political. I
I
think.
agree. I do agree. Like I obviously like I think that it's certain things do try to check boxes, and that's never cool because that just feels like you're just trying to you're tricking me into wanting to like your thing, and there's a difference between woke and political in my mind, you know? Like I think we can all relate to political because we all live in the same world. We're all dealing with the same uh rules or regulations, whatever. But I think the thing, at least I'm speaking for myself at least, um, in modern cinema, sci-fi, geek culture in general, like the thing uh, that I haven't really been a fan of is just, again, just the pandering. I'm like, all right, well, we don't talk like that. That's cool.
Yeah, no, I get that.
That's fine. That's not how we all feel. Like, it's weird, but it feels like a box being checked, and that's there's a difference between I don't know, representation and box checking. And
Yeah. Do you think that that gave, speaking of Hickman,
Mhm.
do you think that gave, I'm thinking right now of the Krakoan X-Men, which was, our Game of Thrones, right? They're, incredibly, it was all about the politics, but it was
Right.
completely untethered
Mhm.
from reality. I mean, let's face
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Do you think stepping back like that. I mean, comics usually do stay 1 foot in the real world. They
Mhm.
left the real world completely. Do you think
Right.
that gave them, Hickman more freedom to, and his other the other writers, of course, more freedom to get into some of this nature of politics without getting into box checking and things like that? I mean, I'm just sort of riffing here. I'm not sure what I'm trying to say.
No, yeah, and I think that's honestly like it's a valid question. I think as long as I think the problem with uh the emphasis of it of politics in media is that a lot of the time people don't like when it feels one-sided. I
Mm,
particularly don't like it when it feels one-sided either because that kind of just like it doesn't get there's not enough room to make both arguments. And I think if once you make both arguments, you can see people's perspectives, you can understand what it is that they're taking away from certain things. And then once you hear it out, that's how we as people can have that discussion like, all right, so what are we gonna do about it? As opposed to one side being like, you suck because of this, or the other side saying the same thing. It's like, all right, so what are we gonna do? I hear you, you hear me, we're having this conversation, we're laying it all out there. What are we gonna do about it?
yeah,
And I think that something that Hickman does really well, whether it's his Secret Wars, whether it's his Infinity Run,
yeah.
something that he does really well is like he gets to the meat of it all, you know? Like it's still like all this grand sci-fi storytelling, but he hones in on the situations and how the characters react to said situations. Whether
Mhm.
it's like, this is how Reed Richards feels about the plan, or T'Challa, or Tony, and this is what Thanos is trying to do over here, you know,
Mhm.
and like it's I think it's really important to just, tell the story and and just kind of highlight the different perspectives overall. And then that's how, not that you make your own decision per se, because, people are going to feel the way that they want to feel about anything. But once you do get into once you do emphasize the politics, I think it's really important for you for writers, creators, whatever, to, like, all right, you want to have this conversation. Let's have this conversation. It's not just you talking at me. It's we're
Yeah, you're
you're
right. You're right.
know what I mean?
I'm a pissy lefty, so I've read all the Chuck Dixon I really care to anymore. Whatever. So I do like to see the one-sided stuff. But you're right. Makes it.
Nah, I
You're
mean, look,
right.
Well,
and that's totally fine. Like, it's all subjective and there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. But
well,
me personally, when it comes to emphasizing those politics, it's like, all right, well, you sometimes especially like in art, not that you have to dumb anything down to anybody, but you it's important to when you communicate something to somebody that you're not, again, I don't even know how to say it. It's not that you should dumb anything down, but acknowledge the fact that like, okay, at this point everybody's listening, and I'm gonna say what I have to say. I'm not gonna be I'm gonna just, say the facts. And if you don't like that, that's how you want to respond to it. I'm not gonna be out here like, first of all, that it's just
Right.
here it is. This is literally the facts.
For me, when
Do
when you talk about comic books or any media going public or going political,
mm,
I think it's important to show to follow the rule in film,
mm,
show, don't tell.
right.
When you talk about Matt Murdock, when you talk about Spider-Man, you show the injustice and how he chooses to deal with it.
Mm,
You don't talk about it.
right.
And I think that's, got to be the best approach because by showing, not telling, you let other people come to their own conclusions and you add to the dialogue without necessarily polarizing the dialogue.
Yep. And going back to Hickman, that is what he did really well. Like in all of his event books,
Yeah.
Um, that's but again, like I'm never gonna like knock anybody for, having any type of preference in that. That's just my personal takeaway is just like I like these things because they open up a conversation as opposed to easily being dismissed by someone who's like, I don't, okay, what is this? I'm not gonna keep reading this. Like if it's again, just in my opinion, if people really want to have that conversation, then everybody needs to be in on the conversation, and then they make up their own minds from that. And yeah, that's just it's just how I see it.
Well, V, I think we've taken up an awful lot of your time.
Have we really? What's going on? Where am
Had
I?
you for about an hour. I don't know how long we promised we'd keep you or wouldn't keep you, but I don't know, Mark, you wanna throw some more at him before we finally cut him
Well,
loose here?
just tell me about, kind of basics about not necessarily how you made the film, but how long from the time you started thinking about it until you got your final cut. What kind of time did you take in that process? I mean, was it
Uh,
something that came together fairly quickly, or was it something more that you had to do piece at a time, or what's the okay, let's put it in proper terms. What's the origin story of of you as a filmmaker?
Oh, there you go.
I like that. Smooth.
Well,
I think
it's not like a radioactive spider, obviously.
Radioactive gaff tape. We were just talking about that.
yeah, so the production of it started in like 2022, and I had certain cuts for it back then. Like that's kind of when it all started. It started taking more form in 2021, and then 2022. I was trying to like pitch it around a little bit, see like if anybody would pick it up. Um, because like at the time I had you know known a few people in the industry, and I tried to pass it around, just see like what would people do with it, and eventually life happens, and you just kind of got to go with the flow of it a little bit. And recently, um, I just I was just thinking about it, like just I honestly I don't even I think the state of superhero film is something
Hmm.
that kind of inspired me to take another look at it because, you know, I unfortunately I'm one of those people that is like, oh well, after Endgame, nothing is the same, blah blah blah. So you have some good stuff, but everything just starts to feel the same. Uh, and I miss when studios took, specifically Marvel Studios, when they took more risks in their filmmaking, specifically with the Russo brothers. It's like everything that they did feels so different, and I'm I'm still a fan of those movies, and
Oh, yeah.
I'll still go out and I'll watch the Marvel movies, but it's just it hasn't. hit. And I guess a part of me was just like, why do I feel this way? Like, what is it about those films, or not just even Marvel movies, movies in general? What is it about Hollywood and the state of Hollywood that has changed so much? And it just made me miss the feeling of like, oh, there's a new Marvel movie out. I'm Thursday night, baby, let's go. I haven't had that since Endgame, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, what was it? No Way Home. Uh, it was fun, but it was just Tobey Maguire is also my Spider-Man, so I would say that.
I'm there with you.
Spider-Man 2 is still the greatest live action Spider-Man movie of all time. That's just my
Agreed.
opinion. That's just my
Agreed.
opinion. Um, love Tom Holland in Civil War. Anyway.
No, I hear you.
No, but
Testify.
I missed that feeling of like, damn, bro, like comic books used to hit this way, comic book movies used to hit this way. Like, what happened? What did I miss? Like, where did we lose the way? What
Well, I hate to rain on your parade since we're the two old guys podcast, but
happened?
you might have just gotten older.
Maybe. And you know what? That is something that I did take into consideration. I was like, oh man.
I mean, it has been quite a while since Iron Man came out.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
wow.
And that, that I rewatched. I was just rewatching Iron Man. That's still probably my favorite of the everything. Well, maybe not my favorite, but it's
Winter
top three
Soldier
for
for me.
sure. Yeah. I'd still probably put Civil War over Winter
Oh yeah.
Soldier. Well, okay. If we're talking about like a Captain America movie, because I would, I would argue that Civil War is not a Captain America movie. I think
Oh,
it's a
it's an
Captain
Avengers
Amer
movie.
it's
Oh
a
yeah.
Captain America movie in name, and it feels like it feels like a contractual loophole where it's
Mhm.
like, oh, whoa, you said that I only have two Avengers movies left in my contract. You do. This is a Captain America movie, Robert. But
Well, yeah, if they were going to make it more of a Captain American movie, I think honestly that the focus is more on Iron Man. I think
yeah,
it's more on Tony Stark.
they it's crazy that they have like the same amount of screen time in that film,
Yeah.
but they still try to pass it off as a Captain America movie. It's all
Yeah,
right,
it
cool.
worked. They made their money.
Sure did. But as far as like even going back to like what I was saying before about how like I like when comic book movies get a bit more they take it to a point of realism that they don't really have to. I think that's why Civil War is my favorite, which is why it's something like even out of the Avengers movies, that's my favorite Avengers movie. Like
No, I can see that.
they
Sure.
did not have to go that hard. Like you could have ended that movie with the um yeah, we're gonna stop these other super soldiers. Like, no, bro, we're gonna get to the nitty gritty of this. Bucky killed your parents. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. You didn't have to do that, but you did that, and I respect that. Um, uh, yeah, look at me. I'm rambling about Marvel movies because I'm a dork.
Yeah, it's the thing to do.
Yes, so say we all.
Yeah, yeah, but just I think the comparison of like superhero cinema in general, like and where it's gone over the last 5 or 6 years, it just made me kind of want to revisit this little project. And it's like, man, I remember I used to be so excited about this stuff, and I was going over like some old footage, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna give this another go. And
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
I just
totally worth it.
I got back in the lab, man, and I just,
Well,
started.
evidently that has paid off.
Fingers
Yeah.
crossed. I appreciate that though, and
So,
I appreciate all the kind words that y'all that
Well,
have
so
had
what's the
me
next
give.
project?
Next project is actually y'all are getting the scoop here. Hold on.
All right. That's what we like to do.
woo!
This is I want to, so as I mentioned earlier, I was considering at least like making something that covered just all the bases of fandom. But for this one, I wanted to focus particularly on the celebration of comic book culture. I'm working on a direct sequel to Look at Us Now, a comic book movie. And that sequel is going to focus on the celebration of it, yes, but we're also going to get into toxic fandom. Who are the toxic fans? Why do they feel this way? Which toxic fans see other fans as toxic fans? Why? You know,
Sounds like you might have
and
been working at a comic shop during Comicsgate too, huh?
man, I've seen a lot.
Yeah.
I've seen and I've heard a lot. And it's even just listening to the conversations that go on about, everything that's come out, even this year, man, like, Superman movie, there's a lot of people that have had a lot of different opinions about that and what it means.
Oh yeah.
And, the Captain America movie with Brave New World, which, by the way, I love Sam Wilson as Captain America. And from the moment of its conception, I was like, this makes so much sense to me. I love Sam Wilson as
I
Captain
thought the
America.
movie let him down, honestly. I agree
It,
with
it
you.
did. They undercooked it,
Yeah.
but it's not because Sam Wilson is Captain America. It's just
Right.
because they didn't give it time to marinate. Y'all made a sequel to The Incredible Hulk and not, you know,
Yeah.
Captain America. But you know, they did my boy dirty, but it's okay. He's still got time.
Oh, right there with you.
He's definitely still got time. Um, people had their thoughts about that. I think those thoughts were a lot louder, maybe. Uh, but Fantastic Four. We got our first great Fantastic Four movie, in my opinion, at
We
least.
did. I mean, I like the old ones, but this
They're
was
fun.
a
Yeah,
different type of movie. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. This felt very accurate, and it was good. It was nice. There was even like little like references to the Jack Kirby some Jack Kirby panels, the cover actually to be more specific, of like the monster coming out the ground. And yeah, that was
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
That was
Mole-Man
great.
Monster. Yeah, for sure.
Like the little Stan and Jack cameo in Times Square. That
Mhm.
was nice. But yeah, man, like it's stuff like that I was like, oh, this is exactly why I fell in love with these stories, with these characters, Even just it was a relatively simple movie too, but it's like you bought into their relationship, you bought into their dynamic in general as a family, how they go about things, how they react to things. And that was a big part of it for me too. It's like Galactus wants, I mean, I don't, spoilers for anybody
Right.
who hasn't seen it. Galactus wants your baby. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, no. And how,
What I really liked about Fantastic Four was after they went and met Galactus and he came back and they say, "Well, are we in danger?" Yeah. What are we going to do about it? I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
Yeah, that was cool.
You never see that in any of these movies.
Yeah.
So it was great that they admitted that the smartest guy on the planet, no clue. I thought that was really, really good. I really like that part of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a big deal because he is the smartest guy in the world. And it's like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, and you felt that moment, like, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, well,
Damn.
you felt that moment for both perspectives. His
Yep.
perspective of, well, people usually, I usually have all the answers, but now I don't. And then the other people who are like, what?
Yeah. Like,
You're the smartest guy in the world. How do you not know the answer? What are we supposed to?
Oh, man. Excellent movie.
Well,
I
it's been
think,
great, V. We really appreciate your time. We're looking forward to figuring out what your next move is, and
Yeah, I can't wait to see the next one.
we both
uh,
expect when you hit your big feature, your first red carpet, we both expect invitations.
Hell yeah, man. What that's a given. What do you mean?
All
But
right.
no, it's an honor to be on the pod with y'all, man. Thank you so much
Oh, it's an
for
honor
the
to have you.
opportunity,
Oh my
dude.
God, the honor is all ours.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to catch somebody at the beginning of his career and see such, interest in the subject and execution of what, expressing your ideas and your opinions. And that takes a lot of commitment and it takes some bravery. And so it's great to see people at the beginning of that stage. That's really terrific.
That's right.
Yeah, man. I'm thankful for the journey, man. Like it's it's just starting, but it's getting some good traction, and I really appreciate y'all's thoughts on it, and I appreciate y'all watching it, and yeah, man. It's I feel I'm lucky, you know.
All right. Well,
Okay, well,
Next time I'll be less jumbled. That was a little
don't worry about that.
there's
I
no,
do I do want to call John out. We were talking about the movie and he said he had a complaint about it,
ooh.
but I think you'll be okay with the complaint because I agree with him. It's not long enough.
oh, this movie. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He said, I said, I just wished it was longer.
Yes, that's the only complaint
I
we
wanted
had.
more.
Yeah,
Oh
right,
I was
man.
really
exactly.
into it, and then it was over.
Well, like I said in the scoop, y'all heard it here first, man. There's a sequel coming, and there's going to be a lot to unpack, and it's it's uh it's definitely going to be an interesting process. But I think just the same way that you saw everybody's perspectives in this film, you'll see everybody's perspective in the next one. It doesn't matter, you know what where they lean on it. It's like, no, let's talk about this.
Well,
I'm pretty excited to see that,
yeah,
actually.
we are, and we'll be happy to help because we are OG Star Wars guys.
That's good to know.
We are
As a,
definitely OG Star Wars guys. I saw it
as
my freshman year in high school, so
All
hey, there we go.
right.
OG. Han shot only Han shot. There's no Han shot
Right. There's
first.
no
There was only
Unshot
one
first.
shot.
first.
There was one shot.
Yeah.
Homeboy didn't get a chance to shoot. All right. It
Exactly.
was one and done, bro. That's it.
All
All
right,
right.
thanks
Well,
again.
Thank you
yeah,
guys.
thanks for
It
coming.
was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was great.
All
Yeah,
right.
man.
And we'll see all you listeners next time.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.